Part 72. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 711. Chapter 711 Rewashing the Spirit. The speed was really fast, but unfortunately the more she watched, the more disappointed and frightened Yuan became. When I only looked at one side before, I didn't realize that at this glance, those planets looked so desolate and dead. How could there be a world of cultivating immortals in a place like this? How disappointed I was before, I feel hopeless now. Yuan sat languidly opposite the boundary gate. Now she could physically sit on the side of the boundary gate and watch. Master, don't be discouraged. Let's try another place. Seeing her listlessness, Xiaoji immediately comforted her. All right. Master, look at which planets have some life on them, and we'll look for them next to each other. Xiaoji thought of this method, it might be useful. Yuan doesn't care, she has no hope, so she can just let Xiaoji do whatever she wants. On the other side, the immortal power in Mujukin's body can no longer be controlled. If he does not break up his troops or abolish his cultivation, his body will explode within an hour. Bingja means abandoning the body and rebuilding the soul, or taking the body and rebuilding it. Mujukin would not choose Bingja. Bingja is suitable for those who have lost their cultivation and cannot repair their danshan, or whose body has been damaged and cannot repair after failing to overcome the tribulation, or whose body has been severely injured and cannot be repaired. Such situations are suitable for Bingja. He chose to abolish his cultivation and rebuild it, so that he would not have to give up his physical body. To abolish cultivation, one must abolish danshan or spiritual roots. Mujukin is finally ready to abolish the spirit root. There is a spirit washing flower in Yuan's space, which is now a magical flower. If he takes the spirit washing flower after abolishing the spirit root, it is possible to wash out the best spiritual root. He glanced in the direction of Yuan's training room, gritted his teeth, waved his hand, and struck a beam of immortal power on his spiritual root. Once, twice, 3 times. Boom. There was a sound that only Mujukin could hear, and then the immortal energy in his danshan leaked out like a flood that had burst a dam. The space suddenly exploded. Yuan, who was in the training room, felt it. She swept her consciousness and saw that the immortal power was exploding from Mujukin. She was shocked. She immediately came to Mujukin's side with her consciousness. Seeing the aura on his body weakening, she understood what was going on. Once the immortal energy was released, Mujukin not only became weaker, but his appearance also slowly became older. Yuan felt heartbroken when she saw it, but there was nothing she could do about it. She left her soul body here to watch. She went to the medicine field to prepare the spirit washing flowers, and then asked Xiaoji to send them to the spirit world. What he is cultivating again is spiritual energy, and the current space is not suitable for him to practice. Xiaoji sent Yuan to the spirit world and opened a cave in a rich place. After everything was ready, Mujukin was moved out. At this time, Mujukin was so old that he looked like he was going to die at any moment. He had silver hair and a handsome face full of deep grooves that could kill several big flies. The tall figure was stooped, as if it was about to break. "Waner, are you scared?" Mujukin's old voice sounded, half of his cello-like voice was gone, rough and hoarse. "How come? No matter what you become, you will always be my man, not to mention this is only temporary." Yuan put him in the medicine bucket prepared in advance. A body that is 70,000 to 80,000 years old, once it is not nourished by immortal energy, is as brittle as an ice cube, and will break if touched with the slightest force. Mujukin smiled, but the smile looked too eye-catching. Yuan looked at him and couldn't laugh or cry. "Sit down and take a medicinal bath first. Your body is too fragile right now, and the soul washing will be very painful. I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it." Okay. Mujukin closed his eyes. This mortal's body was really in bad shape. He was exhausted after saying just 1 or 2 words. The monk's health is still good. However, he did experience the feeling of old age and frailty as a mortal. If Warner hadn't found their ancestors' skills for him, he would have only lived for a few decades. This is what it looks like when you are about to die. Mujukin took a medicinal bath for a long time. Yuan changed a bucket for him to soak in. This bucket helped him quickly draw qi into his body after revashing his spiritual roots. Mujukin, when the spiritual root is formed, you don't need to introduce the qi into the body immediately. Let the elixir nourish the spiritual root. You can start practicing after a day. Yuan fed Mujukin the spirit cleansing flower. Said. Okay. After taking a medicinal bath for a day, Mujukin was no longer so weak, so he nodded. Yuan accompanied Mujukin throughout the next soul cleansing process. Mujukin's soul cleansing was different from Mrsu and others in the past. At that time, their bodies were still strong, unlike Mujukin's scum-like body. What worried her even more was that Mujukin's body was fragile, but his soul was powerful. If he wasn't careful, if something happened to his body wouldn't be able to withstand the powerful soul and he would explode. The spiritual cleansing is proceeding slowly. One day later, the spiritual roots in Mujukin's danshan were clearly visible, but he was still sitting with his eyes closed, with no look of pain on his face. It's really bearable, Yuan couldn't help but sigh. She has not had her spirit cleansed, but she has taken the spirit cleansing flower. When the impurities on her spiritual roots are removed, the pain is not much different from giving birth to a child. Another day later, the spiritual roots in Mujukin's danshan stopped growing. They were as thick as a little finger, as long, and fiery red. It is still a single-line fire spiritual root, but this spiritual root is half larger than his previous one, and it is really a top-quality spiritual root. Are you okay? Mujukin opened his eyes at this moment. You must be able to do it. Just wait for another day before you try to practice. Yuan smiled. Okay, does this count as a blessing in disguise? Mujukin only used a little consciousness to see his current spiritual root. Forget it, it will be even better if you can break that curse. After you practice again, I will show you. No matter what it is, as long as it exists, there must be traces. You can't abolish your cultivation and rebuild it every time. I think the most fundamental solution is to remove it. Okay. Mujukin looked at Yuan dotingly. His Warner is worried about him, so he naturally has to cooperate. It would be best if he could be relieved. He can ascend to the divine world, and Warner doesn't have to waste time looking for other worlds to cultivate immortality. If it hadn't been for him, Warner would have ascended to the divine realm 20,000 years ago, and her cultivation level would have reached an unknown level now. If you cultivate to the level of God Lord or God Emperor as soon as possible, you can take revenge as soon as possible. The next day, Yuan took a look at Mujukin's spiritual roots. They were very stable and ready for cultivation. Mujukin, try practicing now. Okay. Mujukin immediately started operating the technique. As soon as he started operating, he saw a large amount of spiritual energy pouring into his body. Yuan was stunned. There was someone who could draw qi into her body as soon as she started practicing. She thought that no matter what happened, it would take half a day. This monster is a monster, even more monster than before. Yuan thought. Mujukin was afraid that it would not take long to become an immortal. When Mujukin introduced qi into his body, his appearance slowly became younger. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 712. Chapter 712, Curse Seal. His white hair is also turning black, and his stooped back is also straightening. One day later, Mujukin's cultivation stopped at the 7th level of qi training and he stopped practicing. Recultivation and cultivation cannot be like drinking water, as it will also affect the foundation. It's just that his appearance has become that of a middle-aged uncle. Warner, How about I keep looking like this? Mujukin looked more mature than he was in his 20s. Yuan twitched her lips. Does that mean I become like a middle-aged woman? Forget it, I don't want to see my beautiful daughter-in-law turn into a middle-aged woman. Okay, go change your clothes and come here, I'll show you. Okay, Mujukin knew what Yuan wanted to show him. He quickly changed his clothes and came back, sitting cross-legged opposite Yuan. Yuan released her spiritual consciousness and entered Mujukin's sea of consciousness. His sea of consciousness did not change. Yuan only glanced at his soul. Things that can be reincarnated must be attached to the soul. I didn't think about helping him before. Firstly, I didn't think about it. Secondly, my soul wasn't strong enough at that time. Yuan checked his soul from head to toe, but found nothing. Yuan frowned. This was impossible. There must be something there. It must be hidden somewhere, but she didn't find it. Over the years, she asked Little Snake to find jade slips about spells, and she had read them all. Spells are actually similar to bans. Bans have a wider range of uses. Spells generally target humans and beasts. Spells are also composed of runes, and once triggered, they will take effect. For example, Mujukin's spell cannot ascend to the divine world. Once the thunderbolt that ascends to the divine world is triggered, the spell will automatically explode and destroy his soul before the thunderbolt kills him. Let him disappear into ashes. There are also people who say that Mujukin has another trace of his soul. If this soul is no longer needed, that ray of soul can be cultivated. That will definitely not work. As long as it belongs to his soul, you will separate out 10,000 souls. Once those 10,000 souls are cultivated into complete souls, the spell will be born accordingly. Otherwise, if this method can be used to avoid it, then why cast a curse? There is no need at all. Yu Wangxiang couldn't detect it with her spiritual sense, so she used her spiritual eyes. If she can't even see the divine eye, it only means that her current strength is not enough. Yuan scanned Mujukin's soul with her eyes, not even a hair missing, but still found nothing. This only shows that her strength is not enough. Yuan withdrew her eyes. Mujukin opened his eyes and saw the disappointment on Yuan's face. This was also what he expected. If it was so easy to find out, it was not a capable person from the Tiandao sect. Don't worry, we still have time. Mujukin rubbed her head, and he comforted her in turn. Would you like Wan Buddha to help you take a look? Yuan thought that it should not be difficult to find out based on Wan Buddha's strength. You believe him so much? Mujukin looked at Yuan with his deep eyes. How could one person's sea of consciousness be safe for others to enter? He could tell at a glance what Wanfo was thinking. Only her wife was stupid and didn't know. How could he allow a person with an impure mind to enter his consciousness? He would rather not understand it than agree to it. Is there any problem? Yuan asked Mujukin in confusion. Forget it, let's talk about this later. Don't worry. Looking at Yuan's confused expression, Mujukin stopped. He had better not explain clearly to save everyone embarrassment. Okay, Yuan thought that Mujukin was the reason why everyone except mother and son were worried, so she gave up. Now she has just been promoted to a divine person, and when her cultivation reaches higher level, she will look at it later. So in the following days, she accompanied Mujukin to practice in the spiritual world. It just so happened that she took the opportunity to process those two memories. Leaving Mujukin and Xiaoshe outside, Yuan entered the space training room, and then checked the two memories with her spiritual consciousness. In the first paragraph, the scene where her star sword was destroyed was indeed what happened after she obtained the realm gate, but why was that scene in the starry sky? At that time, she was undergoing a tribulation. Could it be that she was out of body to see the memory? This possibility is very high, and you will feel like you are on the scene. She is mainly looking at things about Ming Xiao, her real grandfather. She burned the scene on a jade slip and put it away before returning to Bai Shuja shrine from Jimin. In the shrine, Yao Ji saw that her daughter had returned, and she immediately appeared. Why haven't you come back for so long this time? Huh? You have become a god? Yao Ji was surprised. Yes, I'll come back as soon as this matter is settled. Yuan took Yao Ji's hand and came to her palace in the shrine. The mother and daughter sat down. Yao Ji looked at Yuan carefully and could see that she was in a happy mood. Is there any happy event for you? Yao Ji's face was full of joy. She should be so excited because she was promoted to a god. Well, I was just waiting for you to come back and tell you that my mother is pregnant, and this time it's a boy. Yao Ji smiled with her eyebrows crooked, and she gently stroked her belly with her hand. Yuan suddenly realized, she smiled, she was really happy for her parents. People everywhere hope to have both children. Although those who cultivate immortality do not care about having children, in people's consciousness, sons are the inheritance. For example, the two sons she gave birth to inherited the Mu family, not the Yu family and Tianyang lineage. Yuan looked at her and saw that she was not pregnant yet. She should be pregnant soon. However, even if the man of God was pregnant not long ago, it would have been hundreds of years. If a man of God has been pregnant for tens of thousands of years, then he is not a man of God. It is very, very difficult for a man of God to get pregnant, and it also takes a long time. Then I'm going to be a sister. Mom, when will the baby be born? I can come back on time. It's still early, there are still more than 9,000 years left. Okay, we'll be back on time. Yuan was a little hesitant at this time. Should she tell her mother about her grandfather? After thinking about it, Yuan decided to tell her father and wait until her mother gave birth to a child before telling her. At night, Tianyang came back to take care of Yao Ji and then went to see Yuan. After receiving a message from his daughter in the afternoon, he took care of the matter early. Dad, look at this. When Tianyang arrived, Yuan gave him the jade slip. Tianyang took it and looked at it with his spiritual consciousness. When did Wei-er know about this? Tianyang's fists clenched. It turns out that the root of everything is here. He just can't figure out why Ming Ao is so frantic to kill his daughter and granddaughter. It turned out that she was not his biological child at all, Yao Ji was just his niece. I only found out when my daughter got through the tribulation and released the seal. Tianyang nodded, then when you are not strong enough, you must not go to him. This matter is not that simple. I don't believe that Ming Qi, the ancestor of Tiandao sect, does not know about this. Minqi is your great-grandfather, Tianyang added. Who Minqi is. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 713. Chapter 713 Curse Seal 1. Minqi, when Yuan heard this name, she remembered that Wan Buddha had said that he was a person who existed in ancient times. He was also the head of Tiandao sect. Well, he is stronger than Ming Ao. I heard that their strength has exceeded the strength of the five-axis realm. Dad has never seen them. Tianyang was furious when he thought that Ming Qi must have known about this. Why should he allow Ming Ao to do such things? Yao Ji was also his granddaughter, and Wei-er was also his great-granddaughter. Without his acquiescence, how would Ming Ao dare to abduct his mother-in-law? This Ming Qi does not seem to be a good thing. Ming Qi, who was not a good person in Tianyang's eyes, slowly opened his eyes in the sacred land of Tiandao section as if he knew someone was scolding him. He frowned slightly, then closed his eyes and continued to meditate. He sighed slightly in his heart. He didn't know if this injury would ever heal. Yuan understood, otherwise she would not have gone to Tiandao sect until now, because she knew they were too powerful. She would dare to comb the hair of a tiger in the world, but she doesn't have the courage to do so in the Tiandao sect. My daughter knows that, don't worry Dad, she won't go when her daughter doesn't have that strength yet. By the way, Dad, I'm afraid you won't be able to find another world to cultivate immortality. Yuan told Tianyan about the situation in detail about what she saw. After hearing this, Tianyan waved his hand. In this case, there is no need to look for Wei-er. It is still early for this world to be exhausted. At present, Wei-er mainly focuses on improving cultivation. In addition, this time you use your spiritual pet, take them all away, they are not weak anymore. Okay, thank you, Dad. Yuan also gave Tianyan some things in the space that were useful for the fetus in Yaoji's belly. Tianyan was definitely not polite when his daughter gave it to him, so he took it with a smile. How is Mujukan now? Tianyan still cares about his son-in-law. He is very talented and his daughter has become a god. I guess he must have become one long ago. When Yuan heard her father mention Mujukan, she asked, Dad, do you know who in Tiandao sect can do magic? A curse, who was under the curse? Tianyan was a little surprised. It's Mujukan. Yuan told the story about Mujukan being cursed. Well, this is a bit tricky. There is only one ancestor in Tiandao sect who knows the spell, the ancestor Shang Yuan, but he has been in seclusion for many years. It is impossible for him to solve the spell. Moreover, these ancestors never show others, and they always in the sacred land of Tiandao section. Spells are a very evil thing, and people without talent really can't understand them. Tiandao sect has this magical skill, but unfortunately no one has that talent. That magical skill has been kept on the shelf in the Tiandao sect's scripture pavilion. Yuan understood, but she knew who was good at spells and remembered the man named Shang Yuan. From now on, she would just look for him directly. After that, Yuan took the golden dragon, Xiaoqing, and the blood-eating demonic insects into their space. Now she felt confident. Dad, I'm leaving then. I'm not worried about Mujukan. Okay, bring him back when you have time, and Dad will take a look at it. Tianyan thought for a while and said. Yuan's eyes lit up. How could she have forgotten her father and mother? She was worried about others. What else could her father be worried about? Why not take her father with her now? Dad, why don't you go with your daughter now? Tianyan rubbed her head and smiled. This child was quite good. He nodded. It happened that Yaoji had been sleeping for decades and he was free. Yuan immediately took Tianyan into the space and brought him to the Dongshu spiritual world. On this day, Mujukan did not practice, but sat quietly in the yard, his consciousness checking his soul to see where the spell was. The father and daughter saw the scene when they came out of the space. The bored little snake next to him saw that his master was back and flew to Yuan's side happily. Master, hello, Master, Daddy. Yuan glanced at him and took out the 3 small green and gold dragons. When the little snake saw his wife coming back, he happily hugged his wife. Dehei and Jinlong are hiding next to the cave. Mujukan, Yuan shouted. Mujukan opened his eyes and saw Tianyan. He nodded and called Tianyan Daddy. Tianyan touched his nose. His son-in-law looked older than him now. He sat opposite Mujukan and asked, how is it? Mujukan shook his head, I didn't find it. Tianyan, Dad, let me take a look. Mujukan nodded, closed his eyes and relaxed his mind. Tianyan immediately released his spiritual consciousness. Yuan saw that they started so quickly, so she sat on the edge and watched. Tianyan's spiritual consciousness also carefully examined Mujukan's soul. The first time, nothing was found, but the second time, he vaguely saw something like a hexagonal star in the heart of his soul. It's not obvious, mainly because Mujukan's soul has not yet become a soul body. Fortunately, his soul has been cultivated into a little entity, so he can see a little bit. As long as Mujukan's soul body becomes more substantial, he can clearly see it, and Yuan can also see it. Tianyan rubbed out the curse seal, and then exited Mujukan's sea of consciousness. It is impossible to understand him. Tianyan gave the jade slip to Yuan and said, "It is true that in his heart, Jukan's soul body has not yet been cultivated into a soul body, so it is not visible. However, it can be seen in the half-soul body. The solution: Dad can't figure it out, so Wire will do some research on her own." Yuan took it and was in a very good mood. She finally knew where this thing was. She believed that with her level of restraint, it was only a matter of time before she could solve the spell. She must have solved it before Mujukan ascended. "Thank you, Dad." "Thank you, Dad." Mujukan sighed and thanked him. "You're welcome." Tianyan saw that his son-in-law, who was originally gifted, had suffered such a disaster, and felt sorry for him for a few moments. "That's fine, no monk's path to immortality is smooth sailing, there will always be some accidents of one kind or another. He should temper his heart." He could also see that his son-in-law's character was not strong enough. "Wire, send Dad back," Tianyan said again. "Okay." Yuan knew that her father was worried about her mother. "I'll send Dad back first, you take a look first." Yuan threw the jade slip to Mujukan, then entered the space with Tianyan and sent him back to Baisha Shrine. Yuan sent Tianyan back and returned immediately. "How about it?" Mujukan shook his head. "It's difficult." Yuan took the jade slip and looked at it. Although the curse seal was very shallow, the lines could still be distinguished. It could be seen that a large curse seal contained 6 small curse seals, and the 6 small curse seals formed a band. As long as you want to dismantle one of them, or trigger the thunder tribulation of ascending to a god, this curse seal will explode. Of course, it is not impossible to remove it. Nothing that exists is absolute. The way is to remove the 6 small curse seals at the same time. However, this is currently very difficult for Yuan. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 714. Chapter 714 Exchange. Yuan studied it carefully and found that there are 2 ways to solve this curse seal. First, it can be done by one person. This requires strong spiritual consciousness, separates 6 spiritual consciousnesses, and removes the 6 curse seals at the same time. Second, brother, 6 people can also operate it at the same time, but they must be synchronized when dismantling it. There will be no difference at all, and they all understand the structure of the 6 small curse seals. Both of these 2 methods are very difficult. Yuan doesn't care whether it's difficult or not, but whether it can be solved or not. As long as she can, it's just a matter of time. In the following days, Mujukan practiced and Yuan studied the curse seal. It wasn't until Mujukan recultivated to the level of human immortal and no longer worried about his body exploding due to his powerful soul that the 2 of them entered the space and returned to the Dongsha God realm with their spiritual pets. Now Yuan K is in seclusion to practice the magical skills Fire Dragon Slash and Thick Earth unlocked in Star Art, one for attack and one for defense. Thick Land is more suitable for defense. It can instantly turn the 5 elements of matter within its own range into land that is impermeable to water, fire, metal and wood to defend against attacks. Yuan likes this trick very much. No matter where you are, defense is the first priority. Attack, the most indispensable thing in this world of cultivation, is the magical skill of attack. There may not be any defense. Yuan didn't know how many years had passed since she practiced this practice, and she didn't stop until she mastered 2 magical skills. There are magical offensive and defensive skills, and there is also the Star Sword method. Last time the Star Sword was thrown onto the Soul Mountain, the Star Sword absorbed the soul power, and the weapon spirit slowly woke up and repaired itself. But to completely repair it, a large amount of star stones were needed. Last time, not a single star stone was left, so she had to make a trip to Ziwei continent. Yuan packed up her things and came to Ziwei continent from Jimin. There was someone she met by the way, the matriarch, her aunt, Mingxin. Yuan came to the remaining oasis very easily. She had lived here for a long time before, and Mingxin's kindness to her at that time was completely perfunctory now that she thought about it. At that time, Mingxin always looked at her lovingly from time to time. She must have looked at her father through her. Yuan disappeared directly and came to the attic where she lived that time. To be precise, it was also the attic where she lived at that time. It turns out that Mingxin let her live here because he wanted to see if she was Ziwei. Yuan touched the things in the house and found that most of them had been replaced and were not the ones she had used before. Yuan watched for a while and then came to Ming Xian's palace. When she arrived, there was no one in the palace, and even the formation was not activated. Ming Xian is not here? Yuan thought. She immediately dodged into the space and asked Xiaoji to see where the woman was. After a moment, the scene opposite the realm gate became clear, and Yuan saw that it was the divine realm. Yuan's eyes darkened slightly. How could she let this vicious woman go? With a flash of consciousness, she captured Ming Xian into the space and threw her into the cage to keep Xiu Yan company. After doing this, she clapped her hands in a good mood and returned to the place where she collected the star stones before returning to the crepe myrtle world. This time she collected part of it. Later, half of the star stones were harvested from another star mine vein. At this time, she felt some space fluctuations. She did not stop and continued to collect her ore. After collecting it, Yuan escaped to the ground and found that the whole area was shrouded in a barrier. Don't look at it, either Tianya is here or Mingao is here. Yuan raised her lips. This time she was actually trying to see if Ziwei continent was being monitored. Sure enough, it was. Yuan shouted into the air, "Come out, there's no need to hide." Ha ha ha, Wire is so brave. Mingao suddenly appeared in front of her. Mingao looked at Yuan carefully. Yes, my cultivation this time is a little lower, but it's okay. Yuan looked at Mingao and raised her guard. Are you too confident? Then try to see if your boundary gate can pass through my sect leader's defense. Mingao was very confident. Yuan shook her head and simply sat down. Let's make a deal. Oh? What deal does the girl have with her grandfather? Mingao sat down leisurely. When he saw this girl this time, he felt that he had changed a lot. She was very calm and cunning, and she dared to negotiate a deal with him. Grandfather, well, let's add 2 in front, right, grandfather? Yuan smiled half-heartedly. Mingao's face sank. Has your memory recovered? What do you think? Yuan was still wondering. It turned out that Mingao had done something wrong. That's right, Mingao had placed a ban on Mingao as early as when he and Ming Xiao were talking. Unexpectedly, Yuan had lifted it when he broke through the gods. This can be attributed to Xin Chenju. Yuan doesn't know why a skill is so humane, but Xin Chenju is indeed good. Then what do you want to trade for? Yuan threw out of the cage. Mingao saw that it was a prison, and his eyes changed. The artifact was indeed in her hands, and the person imprisoned there was his granddaughter. There are 2 people here, one is Mingxin and the other is Xiaoyan. The second grandfather can choose one of them. Yuan pointed to the prison and said. Girl, you have good courage. Mingao wanted to squeeze her to death. He thought that Xiaoyan was the only one, but he never thought that Mingxin was there. Who to replace? He wants both. He immediately sacrificed Ming Xiao's soul. Yuan looked around and saw that Ming Xiao's spirit had become even weaker, and he could no longer see his human form. Okay, very good. Yuan held back the anger in her heart. Girl, throw the prison over and I will give it to you, otherwise, I won't mind crushing him. You crushed my grandpa, do you think I will let these 2 people go? Mingao stretched out his hand to squeeze. Yuan was unmoved. She bet that Mingao would not crush her grandfather's soul. Mingao was no better than the evil woman Xiu Yan. Sure enough, Mingao grabbed it but didn't pinch it. Girl is very confident. Stop talking nonsense, throw my grandpa over and I'll let you go. Xiaoyan won't let him go, so I'll catch her after Mingzin lets him go. Xiaoyan may not be able to catch her if she lets him go, but Ming Ao will definitely keep her under guard. There are two main ones in this section, Ming Ao said firmly. Okay, Yuan agreed immediately, and it would be worth two in exchange for his grandfather. She curled her lips and shot 4 soul thorns at the two people in the cage, intending to eat her to death and make them eat up. The two people in the cage were still staring at each other. When Mingzin saw it was Xiaoyan, she immediately understood who had kidnapped her. But when Xiaoyan saw that it was Mingzin, she thought she was here to save her at first, but when she thought about it, people who came to the prison would not be able to get out. Her happiness was in vain. Just when Xiaoyan was about to scold Mingzin for being a fool, her head hurt and she fainted. And the same is true for Mingzin. Yuan immediately threw the person out, put it in front of her, and took the prisoner away. How could he give this to Ming Ao? When Ming Ao saw the two people, he gritted his teeth and asked, "Why are they fainted?" End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 715. Chapter 715 The Tower. Yuan smiled and said, "Let them beat me while I'm awake. Throw my grandfather over quickly. A quick victory. After a long time, who knows if there will be any accidents. In the face of absolute strength, she is not qualified to do so." Ming Ao was so angry that his majestic leader of the Tiandao sect was controlled by a little god. Forget it, let's change him back first. Later, she wouldn't be able to escape his trap, so what if she changed back? Snort. Together. Good. Having said that, the two of them took action at the same time. Ming Ao waved his hand, and Ming Xiao's soul flew to Yuan's side. At the same time, Ming Xian and Xiaoyan also arrived in front of Ming Ao's side. Yuan's consciousness moved and she was brought into the space along with Ming Xiao's soul. Before leaving, Yuan finally put her heart down. As long as she could enter the space, everything would be fine. She also said goodbye to Ming Ao. Ming Ao didn't have the intention to care about Yuan. He grabbed one person with one hand and quickly checked the two women to see why they fainted. But at this moment, the two women in her hands suddenly disappeared. Ming Ao was stunned, and he realized it now. He was confused because he was concerned. He knew that Yuan was very cunning, but he still didn't leave. He was here to check what he was looking at. Ming Ao was so angry that the flames on his head suddenly shot up. In the space, Yuan left the two women in prison. She watched Ming Ao become furious in the space. Snort. You can't blame her for being stupid. After she entered the space, she immediately placed Ming Xiao's spirit on the Soul Mountain. Then when she looked outside, she saw that Ming Ao had not left and was still checking there. She was stupid enough not to accept such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so she immediately accepted the two women. After receiving it, Yuan quickly ran away. "Master, Ming Ao's barrier is really dangerous. I almost can't break through the restrictions outside it." Xiaoja, who had already left, said with lingering fear. "Fortunately, she is back to her peak, otherwise it would be worse this time." Yuan patted her. "It's still a small world. The higher the Tao, the higher the demon, right?" "Master, I am not a demon," Xiaoji muttered. "Ah, slip of the tongue, slip of the tongue, the small world is 10 feet higher," Yuan said quickly. "That's pretty much it." Xiaoja hugged Yuan's arm. Okay, Aojiao got involved. "We were lucky this time. It was because Ming Ao was pretentious and cared about those two poisonous women that we were able to escape from his barrier." Yuan rolled her eyes at her. "This guy, I forgot how it was broken before. Still have to beat her, even the slightest bit of indolence in front of the great power will not do." Sure enough, after Yuan finished speaking, Xiaoja's expression became normal. She nodded and went to find Xiaja and the others. As soon as Xiaja left, Yuan went to Soul Mountain. There was a barrier outside Mingxiao Soul. She took a look and found that she couldn't break it, so she had to call 10,000 Buddhas. 10,000 Buddhas also spent a lot of effort to break the barrier. Donor, has the poor monk returned? The implication is that there is nothing else to do. Monk, don't worry, please help me see if there is anything wrong with this soul. She didn't believe that Ming Ao was so kind and didn't tamper with her grandfather's soul. Her divine eyes didn't see the problem. Just because she couldn't see it didn't mean there were no restrictions or spells. Wanfo glanced at the soul and thought to himself that this was another unlucky guy. He was almost as bad as he was back then. If the soul is not repaired, it will disappear into thin air. Wanfo didn't waste any time. He checked it carefully and said, Donor, don't worry. Apart from the fact that the soul is about to disperse, there is nothing wrong with it. Yuan let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, Ming Ao didn't do anything. Otherwise, it would be trouble again. Troubles have been happening one after another recently, and nothing good has happened. Thank you, holy monk. Yuan thanked her sincerely. Amitabha, the poor monk has returned. 10,000 Buddhas did not dare to look at Yuan, so they clasped their hands together, pronounced the Buddha's name and left. Yuan is that fairy, and every time he sees her, his heart, which is already dying of old age, beats loudly. Yashao. 10,000 Buddhas want to leave here and travel around the world. Yuan glanced at Wanfo, who was running away in a strange way, then looked back at Mingxiao and saw that his soul was absorbing soul power, so she left the Soul Mountain. Oh, I forgot to ask where the 10,000 Buddhas tower is. It is not suitable to improve my cultivation level now, and the star sword has not been repaired, so go and break into the tower. Anyway, no one in the tower did anything to her. Yuan asked Xiaja to look for the divine tower. Yuan was busy going to the sacred tower to make preparations. On the other side, Ming Ao was so angry that he ran back to his den and used space magic to search for Yuan. He couldn't figure it out. That realm gate was so powerful that it could even break through his spatial restrictions. What kind of artifact is that? Ming Ao really wanted to catch Yuan and kill her to get the treasure. Now it's not just her astral body, Starju also has this treasure. At that time, if the old man hadn't found out that he had killed his brother and kidnapped his sister-in-law, how could he have handed over Starju as compensation? Otherwise, Kaiyu and her daughter would have been killed by him long ago. How come that Ziwei capsized the boat in her hands? It really him off. Thinking of Starju, Ming Ao's eyes flashed. Such a treasure was more precious than the realm gate, and he must get it back. The most precious thing originally belonged to him. Suddenly, his consciousness sensed spatial fluctuations. Is it a space stone? Ming Ao was pleasantly surprised, and he immediately looked for the space fluctuation. I saw an abandoned planet emitting space fluctuations. Ha ha ha, Ming Ao laughed loudly. He couldn't find anything after wearing iron shoes. It took no effort to get it. Ziwei, thank you very much. If he hadn't failed to catch her, how could he have such good luck? When Yuan was ready, Xiaja found the real divine tower among many types of towers. Master, look, this is it, Xiaja called to her. Okay, we'll go there right away. Yuan's consciousness moved and brought her to the pagoda. In the God realm, gods and gods teleport when they come and go. There is no flying around. That is too slow. If you teleport, you will almost appear and disappear out of thin air. Therefore, when Yuan appeared in this way, no one noticed at all. Hers is different. The pagoda is indeed as 10,000 Buddhas said. It has 10 floors, is 10 feet high, is octagonal in shape, is completely black, and carries an ancient and majestic aura. Standing on a huge square. Leading to the square is an avenue 1 foot wide. On both sides of the avenue are large markets selling everything. The bustling crowd is so lively. There are many people coming and going on the road, but there are not many people who are gods like her. The cultivation realms of the divine realm are divided into 9 levels, starting from gods and humans to earth gods, heaven gods, true gods, kings, sects, emperors, lords, and emperors. Each level is divided into early, middle, late, and Dzogchen. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 716. Chapter 716 Tower 1. Yuan followed everyone towards the sacred tower. Anyone who enters the pagoda will be transported to the first floor of the pagoda as long as they hand over enough sacred stones. To enter the first floor, 10,000 sacred stones are required. Yuan secretly sighed that it was really expensive. As expected, it is exactly what 10,000 Buddhas said, there are no sacred stones. I can only watch. In the divine world, it is not easy to earn divine stones. Some gods cannot earn 10,000 divine stones in their lifetime. She took out 10,000 divine stones and threw them into a nearby artifact. After the artifact confirmed that it had enough 10,000 divine stones, a halo of light enveloped her and she was teleported in. When Yuan opened her eyes again, she saw that she was standing in a dense forest. Looking at it, it looked like a small world. The divine power here is as strong as the concentration of divine power in her space. Think about the supply of 10,000 divine stones per person each time, it would be strange if the divine power is not strong. There are also mythical beasts that are equivalent to gods and humans everywhere. The gods who come in are fighting with the mythical beasts. This is a real fight. She saw with her own eyes that a mythical beast swallowed it in one mouthful. The mythical beast was quite satisfied. Burped. Then turn into human form and continue to the next goal. It turns out that this is a real world, and people who die in it are dead. Yuan immediately became vigilant. First, she checked her space and found that it was not disabled. Then she felt relieved when she found that everything was no different from the outside. The goddess is alone. Yuan was about to leave, when suddenly a divine man appeared next to her. He is in the realm of a god man and a god king. He has a handsome appearance and clear eyes. Yuan nodded. Can we go together? The man of God asked politely. Yuan glanced at him and said, Senior, do you want to take care of me? Haha, it's not impossible. This is my first time coming in. I don't know what's going on here. But when I saw the goddess when I came in, I wanted to be with the goddess. The scratched his head in embarrassment. He looked like a pure young man. Who is Yuan? How could I be deceived by his appearance? Who has ever seen a person in the realm of the God King be an innocent little brother? At any rate, she has never seen it and doesn't believe it. Yuan clasped her fists at him. I'm afraid of disappointing my senior. This is my first time for this junior to come in, and my cultivation level is low, so I might be holding my senior back, so I'll just say goodbye. After saying that, Yuan disappeared in a flash. Yuan had already left, the expression of the divine man suddenly changed, and his harmless expression suddenly turned sinister. He succeeded in this move many times. No one he wanted to kill could escape from this move. How could a little goddess be able to do so? Unable to resist his temptation, he ran away. Haha, this woman is very vigilant and has a good nature. Well, find her and tease her. Her cultivation level cannot reach the second level. As long as she is still on this level, he can find her. A series of movements of the godman were all seen by the invisible Yuan. Sure enough, she hooked her lower lip and left here in a flash. She searched around in the forest to see if there were any miraculous medicine seedlings. The mature miraculous medicine could be found here without even thinking. She always looks for medicinal materials wherever she goes, and this has become a habit of hers. After searching for a while, I found a few seedlings that I cherished a little bit. After Yuan moved them into the space and planted them, I found a mythical beast and practiced with them. The opponent was a red-eyed beast that looked like a gorilla. Yuan punched it without using any magical skills. Fighting with powerful beasts is the best way to exercise your body. The red-eyed beast saw Yuan's attack and smiled contemptuously. He raised his long arms to meet it. Boom! The two fists collided, making a loud noise, and then, there was a click. Sound, the sound of broken bones. There is no doubt that the injured person must be Yuan. Yuan felt pain and quickly took a few steps back. Kai Tong Beast thought, fight him. He won't say that he has defeated all the invincible opponents in the world with his bare hands, but he has not suffered any losses. The result of suffering a loss and failing to win is death. The little goddess who overestimates her own capabilities, the red-eyed beast took a few steps forward, struck with both fists, and attacked both up and down. Yuan only took a few steps back, but before she could heal her wounds, the attack from the red-eyed beast came. Yuan instantly poured the star power in her body into her left hand, and quickly blasted the fists of the red-eyed beast. Suddenly, a powerful force attacked the red-eyed beast. The red-eyed beast felt the aura and was shocked, secretly wondering how this little goddess suddenly became so dangerous. It was just that his attack had already been sent out, and it was impossible to stop it. He had no choice but to pour his divine power into his fists to ensure that he would not die. Boom! Both sides used their divine power in this attack, so imagine how powerful this attack is. The two fists collided, and the air wave caused the area to be flattened to the ground within a radius of 10 miles. After the sandstorm passed, the red-eyed beast with a broken arm was left alone, looking at Yuan fiercely. If you dare to hurt him, find her and see how to deal with her. Yuan had already slipped into the space to heal her wounds. When she used that blow to collide with the red-eyed beast, her left arm was also broken, and then she entered the space to heal. You don't know your own strength without fighting, but you will know how weak you are only after fighting. Yuan took a grateful look at the 10,000 Buddhist temple. The pagoda was indeed a good place for cultivation and exercise. Yuan recovered from her injuries and moved her arms. Her body was strong enough, and her arms were broken by the red-eyed beast. Yuan opened her divine eyes and found the red-eyed beast. She stepped out of the space and teleported to the red-eyed beast. Little goddess, it's you again. When the red-eyed beast saw her, he was furious. He also broke an arm in the previous battle. He had just recovered when she came again, and he happened to be looking for her too. This time, if he beats her to death and then eats her, his strength will increase. The divine beasts here rely on these divine beings to quickly increase their strength. Who would practice there honestly? By the time you become strong, the daylily will be cold. When the divine beasts become stronger, they can go to the second level. Of course, they also need to use divine stones. Divine stones are not produced here. Only the gods who come in can have divine beings. So, they not only eat the gods, but also steal the gods' stones. Yuan nodded and attacked the red-eyed beast without saying a word. The red-eyed beast immediately responded to the challenge. So one person and one beast fought fiercely. This battle lasted much longer than the previous one. Both of them were injured. Of course, Yuan was still the most seriously injured. She went into the space to heal her injuries. After this healing, Yuan obviously felt that her cultivation had become much stronger. She was overjoyed and quickly found another divine beast to fight. In this way, in just 1 year, Yuan has a faint tendency to break through to the middle stage of Shenren. This simply made Yuan happy. After being promoted to a god, it is difficult to advance to the first level. Some people have never been promoted to the first level in 100,000 years, let alone a big realm. No wonder the gods flocked to it even if 10,000 divine stones were spent on it. As long as you don't die or go out on your own, you can stay here. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 717. Chapter 717. Who is the little sheep? 10 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Yuan woke up from seclusion this day. She exhaled and looked happy. A month ago, she had been upgraded to the middle stage of the divine being, and now she had just consolidated her cultivation. This is really a holy land for cultivation. He was promoted to a minor level in 11 years, which made Yuan extremely happy. Yuan stepped out of the space and continued to look for the mythical beast to fight. In the past 11 years, Yuan has been fighting most of the time. Not only is she proficient in using magical skills, she can use them as she pleases, and she can also fight at higher levels. There are also second-order and third-order divine beasts on this floor, or even higher. Yuan, who is above third order, dare not go and beat her up, but she has no problem at all against the second-order divine beasts, not to mention that she is already in the middle stage of the God-Man stage, and she has no problem at all. Question. Goddess, long time no see. As soon as Yuan came out, she met the divine man she had just seen when she came in. It was so haunting that Yuan rolled her eyes at him. Senior, are you so idle? Yuan's eyes darkened. This man had been following her for 10 years. Every time she appeared, he would come to find her. It's really annoying. She originally thought that it would be difficult for A to practice, so she spared his life. Since she rushed to die, she was not polite. Yes, if you don't have any sacred stones to go up to the second floor, you can wander around this floor more, hunt more sacred beasts, sell them, and collect enough sacred stones before you go up. The man of God didn't notice the killing intent in Yuan's eyes, and said with a gentle expression. Senior, you want to get some sacred stones from me, right? The was stunned. He didn't expect the little goddess to tell her intention directly. He thought too much. It's not that he keeps staring at Yuan, a little goddess. In the divine world, what profit can a little goddess like Yuan have? He wasn't even looking at the divine robe that Yuan was wearing. A little goddess could actually afford to wear a high-grade divine robe. She must be a little fat sheep from a big family who came out to gain experience. He likes little fat sheep like this. Haha, it seems you are not stupid. If the little goddess gives you the divine stone and the divine clothes on your body, I will spare your life. The God King said as he waved his hand and put up a barrier, showing his fierce look. It's hard for you, you've been pretending for so long, and you know you can't catch me, so you come to die, Yuan said, and immediately activated the divine clothing defense. After all, the opponent is the God King. Looking for death, the God King was so angry that he hated the little goddess in front of death. She was so slippery despite her low cultivation level. He, the God King, was helpless against her. A ray of divine power struck at Yuan. Yuan raised her lips, and with a sudden movement of consciousness, she stepped into the space. She was stupid and stood there to be beaten. Boom! The attack of the God King failed, and Yuan disappeared. The God King was angry. Every time he attacked, it was like this. The little goddess would disappear out of thin air. I don't know what kind of magical skill this little goddess had. It's not the invisibility technique. Even if the invisibility technique makes you invisible, the person is still there. He would have been killed by him if he bombarded the barrier like this. But not. Neither is space magic, there is no space fluctuation. Why is he so stupid? Life space. Life space is not a rare thing in the divine world, but it is definitely not something that a little goddess can afford. Thinking of this, the God King was overjoyed. He simply stopped attacking and scanned the barrier with his spiritual consciousness. As soon as Yuan came out, he would kill her. After Yuan entered the space, he kidnapped the king directly from the boundary gate and threw him into prison. Then she came out. In prison, the God King was in a daze. He lay on the ground unable to move, and he couldn't even use his consciousness. He didn't understand how he got here in the blink of an eye. I thought others were little fat sheep, but it turned out that he was the little fat sheep. The God King was so regretful that his intestines were green. He came to die today because he was dizzy. Outside, Yuan found a second-level divine beast to fight with. Fire Dragon / Yuan lightly scolded and used a magical skill, and saw a dragon-like flame slashing at the second-level divine beast opposite, the Fire Fantasy Tiger. The Fire Phantom Tiger is also a fire attribute. When it sees a flame coming, it opens its mouth wide, and a giant fireball shoots out from its mouth with a bang and flies towards the flame Boom! The fire dragon slashed at the big fireball, cutting it in half. However, the fire dragon did not lose much power because of that slash, but instead slashed hard at the Fire Fantasy Tiger on the opposite side. Whoops! Huohuanhu saw that the situation was not going well and fled in a flash. Yuan curled her lips. As long as she used her magical skills, most of the magical beasts would run away without being able to defeat them. Hitting with the palm of your hand is still satisfying, and the mythical beasts will not escape so quickly. Yuan withdrew the flame and restored the destroyed vegetation here with a wave of her hand. Then she looked for the next target. The next target was a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which fought against her in human form. This time, Yuan did not use any magical skills and fought against the Tyrannosaurus Rex with her fists. The second-level Tyrannosaurus Rex is not a vegetarian. After hundreds of moves with Yuan, the two of them were indifferent. After 1,000 moves, Tyrannosaurus Rex jumped out of the fighting circle. He waved his hands and gasped, "Goddess, the little is willing to admit defeat. You are too strong and the little can't beat you." After saying that, Tyrannosaurus Rex threw her a space ring and ran away. Yuan picked up the ring and looked at it with her spiritual consciousness. Apart from the sacred stone, there were many other miscellaneous things inside. Yuan smiled, she had become a rag collector. However, this battle is not a loss. If you go out and sell these, you still have tens of thousands of sacred stones. The divine beasts cannot leave unless they are contracted by a human monk and can follow their master out of the tower. However, most divine beasts are not willing to be contracted beasts of human monks and be ordered around by human monks. They like freedom. Yuan put away the space ring and was about to leave when suddenly a burst of divine power came from behind. Yuan immediately took a star-studded step and was 100 feet away. She moved her body and looked back at the person who attacked her. Hey, a little goddess has good footwork. She can dodge my attack. A charming goddess wearing fiery red clothes flashed out. Yuan narrowed her eyes slightly. She hated people who attacked her from behind. An earth god, look at this tone. Don't she know she can fight across levels? Yuan was too lazy to talk to her, raised her head and swung out a fire dragon slash. Hey, the little goddess has a bad temper. The goddess in red raised her hand, and an umbrella-shaped artifact came out, and she blocked the fire dragon's attack with one swing. The look in his eyes was full of nonchalance, and he didn't pay attention to fire dragon slash at all. Yuan curled her lips, she would not be shy about her beauty. Hoo, click. Fire dragon slashed at the artifact with domineering power. With just a few clicks, the artifact was broken, and then it headed straight towards the red-clothed goddess. Ah! With a scream, the red-clothed goddess was split in half and burned to ashes by the fire dragon. Even her soul did not escape. Those who are struck by the fire dragon basically have no chance of running away. Fire dragon is formed from Xiao Zi's flames. It is difficult to escape the burning of the divine fire. Yuan cleaned up the battlefield and left immediately. If you kill someone here, you have to leave quickly, otherwise it is easy to encounter people who are behind you like just now. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 718. Chapter 718, First hearing about the battlefield outside the territory. Yuan found a place to enter the space. She rarely entered the space these years, so she went to check on Mujukan. Mujukan's cultivation level has not improved over the years and he has been refining his body. How? Yuan asked, holding his hand. Very good, Waner, don't worry, just practice with peace of mind. Mujukan kissed her on the lips. Yuan nodded, her expression a little sad. If Mujukan is promoted to a god, they can practice together. Mujukan hugged her and patted her and said, don't worry too much about Waner. One day I will be promoted to a god. If Waner doesn't believe it, why don't I still believe in myself? Mujukan pinched her nose again. Yuan nodded, of course she believed in herself. After staying with him for a few days, Yuan came to Hun Mountain. Girl, here we come. Ming Xiao's soul became more solid. When he saw that it was Yuan who was coming, he immediately called her. Grandpa. Yuan looked a little sad as she sat opposite Ming Xiao. Girl, why are you in a bad mood? Yuan nodded. In the past few days, she looked at the curse mark on Mujukan's soul, but unfortunately she still couldn't see it. Tell Grandpa, Ming Xiao said lovingly. Yuan's eyes lit up. Grandpa was also from Tiandao sect, so he should know. Then she asked, Grandpa, do you know the spells of your Tiandao sect? A curse? Who did you listen to? Who was under the curse? Hearing the spell, Ming Xiao's soul trembled. The spell of Tiandao sect is difficult to learn. Not only does it depend on talent, but the spell is also very weird. As long as the person is selected by the spell, he must learn it even if he doesn't want to learn it. Yes, don't even think about learning other magical skills. In the end, no one touched the spell, and of course he didn't touch it either. Yuan talked about Mujukan's matter and said, Grandpa, can you find Shang Yuan and let him solve it? You girl, how could you encounter such a thing? Yes, it only needs to be solved by the person who cast the curse. Don't try to solve it yourself. The person who cast the curse needs his essence and blood, and he must solve it himself. No. That's it. Yuan was shocked. It was worth asking this question today. She almost caused a big disaster. Grandpa still knows more than Dad. Grandpa, do you want to go see your mother? No, if she sees Grandpa like this, she will be worried. By the way, girl, how did you save Grandpa from Ming Ao? You didn't lose anything, right? Yuan shook her head. Originally, I exchanged Xiaoyan and Mingxin for them. After that, I kidnapped them again and now they are locked up. Ming Xiao sighed heavily. You girl, you are too courageous. Don't mess with him in the future. He is narrow-minded and will retaliate. Yuan smiled. Grandpa thought her too weak, but he cared about her safety, which made her feel very comfortable. Don't worry, Grandpa, I have a sense of discretion. Grandpa, do you miss Grandma? Girl, Grandpa advises you not to go. Ming Xiao knew what Yuan wanted to do as soon as he heard this. Yuan touched her nose. She really wanted to rescue her grandmother. Now that she was in the tower, it was easier for her to do so. Girl, don't go before you reach the level of the God Emperor. In the Tiandao sect, there live the strongest people in this world. They are more powerful than you can imagine. Are they really beyond this level of cultivation? Ming Xiao nodded. Well, this is not a legend. Grandpa has seen it before. They can leave this world freely and go to other cultivation worlds. At that time, he was already a god. Because he was preparing to take over as the head of the Tiandao sect, Minky took him to the divine place to pay homage to his ancestors and let the ancestors have a look. He didn't know what happened at that time. He witnessed something with his own eyes. The ancestor just waved slightly towards the sky, and a light door appeared in the sky, and the ancestor stepped in. The laws of the God realm are the most comprehensive. Even the God Emperor cannot tear apart the sky with his bare hands. He can teleport wherever he wants to go. Grandpa, are they going to other cultivation worlds? Apart from our 5-axis realm, we are the only ones in this starry sky who are still intact. Yuan told Mingxiao what she saw. Mingxiao was not surprised when he heard this. He said, "We all know this. According to what your great-grandfather once said, all the ancestors of Tiandao sect have gone to battlefields outside the territory to guard our 5-axis realm." Outside the battlefield, Grandpa, what does that mean? This is the first time Yuan has heard about battlefields outside the territory. Mingxiao said quietly, "Girl, now that we have mentioned this, Grandpa will tell you something about the world outside the 5-axis realm, maybe you can encounter it in the future. This universe is centered on a very large energy planet, and there are countless planets around it. Some planets have people, some planets have other creatures, and some planets have huge people. The 5-axis realm is actually at the edge of the universe, with the weakest divine power and the most backward cultivation civilization. Since the energy planet was damaged, the nearest planets have suffered, so those humans and creatures have to find new planets to settle down. Planets like the 5-axis world that have not been affected are their first choice. But how can we give up our territory to others? So the great powers of the 5-axis realm set up defenses not far from the 5-axis realm, and the great powers guarded there. That is the battlefield outside the territory, the real outside the territory. But there are also powerful people guarding the Wuxia realm, which is in the sacred land of Tiandao sect. After Yuan listened, her heart couldn't calm down for a long time. What she saw and understood about this universe was just the tip of the iceberg. I also sincerely admire those seniors who protect the 5-axis realm. In the past, she only listened to what 10,000 Buddhas said about Tiandao section today. After hearing what her grandpa said, her understanding of Tiandao sect was overturned. So, regarding the conflict with 10,000 Buddhas back then, we cannot just listen to what 10,000 Buddhas said one-sidedly. Originally, she wanted to help one Buddha get revenge, but now she can't. Before the matter is clarified, she will not just listen to one Buddha's words. But she will not let Ming Ao and Tianya go. Oh, by the way, Grandpa, why does Tianya want my astral body? What's so special about this astral body? Yuan suddenly thought of this question. Mingxiao smiled bitterly. What's special but not special is that I can practice the star art. This star art comes from the outside world of cultivation and is more powerful than our 5-axis world. I don't know about the others. That's it, Yuan sighed. Because of this, Ming Ao and his son wanted to kill her. She thought that the astral body had some special function, so they would use any means to kill her. Who is this person? Just two crazy batches. Yuan was very happy to chat with her grandpa today and learn so many things that she didn't know before. It's just that grandpa said that seeing Chenju was a technique from an outside world. She was curious about what kind of world it was. It would be great if she could go there and let Mujukan practice there. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 719. Chapter 719, Abuse of Scum. She was as if she was in a daze. As long as there was a little bit of hope, she wanted to find it immediately. It's just that she is still sensible, and the cultivation civilization her grandfather mentioned is not something she can achieve with her current strength. But Grandpa doesn't know if it has any other uses after all. Grandpa has been dead for so long, your great-grandfather may know something about it. I can ask you if you have a chance in the future. Ming Xiao looked lonely when he talked about Minky. Yuan nodded, pursed her lips, and couldn't bear to ask, Grandpa, does great-grandfather know what happened between you and Ming Ao? Ming Xiao was very sad. You should know, your grandma is at Ming Ao's place. Grandpa, don't be sad. One day this revenge will be avenged. Yuan could only console her verbally. Well, Grandpa believes in the girl, Ming Xiao said gently. He did have great hopes for Yuan. Given his current situation, it will take him who knows how long it will take him to cultivate his divine body. Taking revenge on his own will be easier said than done. With his granddaughter's qualifications and the magical things he possesses, he believes she can do it even more. It is impossible not to take revenge. His old wife is still there with Ming Ao, and his heart will hurt every day he stays there. After Yuan came out of Soul Mountain, she was not in a hurry to go out, but cleaned up the space ring she got from Ming Xin. She wanted to see if there was anything about the geographical location of Tiandao sect. She was disappointed that there was none, but Ming Xin had a lot of good things, which were comparable to Xiaoyan's good things. In addition, the God King's things are not satisfactory. Apart from a bunch of messy things in the space ring, there are only a few thousand divine stones. It is true as he said, there is no second level on the sacred stone. Packed his things together with the things Huo Huanhu gave her, and went out to sell them together. After putting things in order, Yuan took Ming Xian out and removed the soul thorn from her soul. Ming Xin slowly wakes up. It's you, Ming Xin was surprised. Unexpected, Yuan said coldly. She was in a very unhappy mood today and needed to find a punching bag to vent her anger on and abuse her at the same time. This hypocritical woman deceived the mother and daughter to a great extent. I have wanted to deal with her for a long time. I have been fighting outside these years and I haven't thought about it yet. Today is just the right day, and if she doesn't vent her frustration, she will go crazy. Ming Xian was startled. She looked at Yuan, whose eyes were clear in front of her. She wondered if this girl would be as easy to deceive as before after she died once. Her eyes flashed, and she saw that her cultivation level was already that of a god. Now that he is alive, he probably remembers his past memories, otherwise he wouldn't have kidnapped her. But we must try no matter what, save our lives first. It was really uncomfortable to be in that prison, and she didn't want to stay there for the rest of her life. In the past, as long as she said something nice or soft, this girl was as easy to fool as her idiot mother. As long as she is allowed to go out and find her father and grandfather, what else can this girl do to her? So she said pitifully, Wire, my aunt had no choice but to do it. How could she be the Lord God's opponent? She was completely coerced by him. Wire must believe in her. Snapped. Yuan was furious. This shameless woman actually wanted to repeat her old tricks. Do you think she was still the simple-minded Zai way back then? He gave her a slap in the face and said, You shameless old man, are you being coerced by him? You two worked together to deceive our mother and daughter, you also attacked my mother from behind, and even imprisoned her. Do you think I am still the same fool who loves to deceive? Yuan grabbed Ming Xian's cheeky face with all her strength, causing her to grimace in pain. Ming Xian was stunned by Yuan's slap. Seeing Yuan's murderous aura, she was so scared that she opened her mouth not knowing what to say. Say what? What Yuan said was true, it was indeed the case back then. How is it, have nothing to say? Seeing Ming Xian's embarrassed and frightened look, Yuan felt particularly comfortable. Being a scumbag can really relieve her stress. It's just that Ming Xian's endurance was too poor, so she just slapped her and scared her into this. I. Ming Xin covered her swollen face, she really had nothing to say. Look, I just pinched you and slapped you, But you couldn't bear it? Didn't you do this to my mother back then? How does it taste? It's so sour. At that time, you couldn't have imagined that you would end up like this, right? As he spoke, Yuan pinched the other half of Mingxin's face hard, causing her to cry. This vicious woman had witnessed her tormenting her mother when her mother was in a coma. Today she had Ming Xin watching helplessly as she retaliated with a tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye. Mingxin lay paralyzed on the ground, thinking about the time she tortured Mingruo before, how happy she was then, and how regretful she feels now. What she regretted was why she didn't kill Mingruo in the first place, leaving behind future troubles. It is true that if you cut the grass without eradicating the root, the consequences will be endless. Yuan saw that she looked hopeless and thought that she couldn't stand it anymore. She curled her lips and called Xiaoqing with a sudden movement of consciousness. Xiaoqing came to her in the blink of an eye. "Owner, you will pay back how this woman tortured my mother." As she spoke, Yuan raised her eyebrows towards Xiaoqing and imported the image of how Mingxin tortured her mother into Xiaoqing's sea of consciousness. "This evil bitch, master, don't worry, I'm the best at this, I guarantee that the master likes it." After Xiaoqing read it, her lungs were so angry that she hit Mingxin without saying a word. With one slap, Ming Xin's face suddenly turned into a pig's head. Yuan sat on the stool in a good mood and watched. Unfortunately, there were no melon seeds, but she still picked a plate of fruits with her hand and ate them while watching. After a while, Mujukan arrived, and even 10,000 Buddhas came out to watch the fun. Amitabha, one Buddha looked at Mingxin, who was badly beaten by Xiaoqing on the ground, and shouted the Buddha's name. "If you can't stand it anymore, just go back to your temple and stay." Yuan glanced at him and said angrily. She hadn't talked to the great monk yet. Wanfo was filled with anger when he heard Yuan's tone. Wanfo wondered when he had offended her. But when he looked at Yuan with a look of disgust, he returned to the 10,000 Buddhas temple in a flash of consciousness, waiting to ask her when she was in a better mood. It was obvious at first glance that she was in a bad mood. Mujukan didn't ask anything. He sat next to Yuan and held her hand. He understood that Waner was venting her emotions. She rarely did this, so she must have been so sad that she acted like this. Yuan smiled at him. "Don't ask me why." "Why do you ask?" "As long as Waner wants to do something, you always have your reasons," Mujukan said warmly. "You are the only one who knows how to comfort people." Yuan reached out and pinched his face. Now Mujukan's appearance has recovered, and he has that evil face again that makes people and gods angry. Xiaoqing tortured Ming Xin until she could only breathe, and then she stopped. After Yuan threw her back into the prison, she came out to continue. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 720. Chapter 720. Thank you. On this day, Yuan came to a small stream. The scenery here was beautiful, so she stopped to rest. Boom! As soon as she sat down, a god-man suddenly fell from the sky, and then another god-man came. The god-man wielded two rays of divine power, one towards the man on the ground and the other towards her. Yuan's eyes tightened. It was none of her business if the two of them were fighting. They were beating her indiscriminately. Is she so easy to fight? Yuan quickly hit a thick ground shot. A wall of earth quickly appeared on the ground to block her and the people on the ground, and at the same time turned the place where they were into thick earth. Boom, boom. There were two loud noises, and the two divine powers hit the thick earth wall. The wall fell down in response, but it also blocked the attack of the divine man. At the same time, Yuan had already picked up the man on the ground, moved the star step, and fled from here. In a cave, Yuan set up a star array and fed a healing pill into the mouth of the god. The man of God was seriously injured, and Yuan helped her dissolve the medicine. As soon as the medicine dissipated, it quickly repaired the body of the god, and after half a stick of incense, the woke up. The man of God woke up and said thank you, then went to heal his wounds, while Yuan watched over him. It took 1 hour for the god-man to fully recover from his injuries. Thank you, goddess, for saving me. The first thing the goddess did when he woke up was to thank Yuan. You're welcome, it was just an accident to save you. Yuan rarely meddles in such nosy matters. This time the person who attacked this god-man was a divine beast. She often saw him attacking human monks. This godman was fine. Yuan immediately withdrew the star array, walked out of the cave, and prepared to leave. Goddess, wait a minute. The man of God stopped Yuan. Yuan turned around and looked at him. The man of also came out. He pondered for a moment, took out a jade box from the ring space, and handed it to Yuan with both hands. There is no way to repay the life-saving grace of the goddess. This is an unexpected gain from the little god. I hope the goddess can accept it. By accepting it, he will repay the life-saving cause and effect. Yuan understood this. She reached out and took it. Then I'm not welcome. It should be, the man of God said with a smile. Yuan put the jade box into the space and disappeared with a movement of consciousness. The man of saw Yuan leaving and left here quickly. Yuan actually entered the space. After seeing the man of leave, she went to see what was in the box. There are restrictions on the box. This restriction is not difficult for Yuan, and it can be solved in 2 hours. As soon as the restraint was released, a burst of hot heat came out of the box, and suddenly, the little purple in the dantian flew out. Master, can you swallow a flame for me? The small fire waved in front of her a few times, and then stood guard outside the box. At this time, there was no more heat coming out of the box. Yuan smiled and said, here you go. After Yuan finished speaking, Xiao Zi got into the box with a whoosh sound. Not long after, Xiao Zi got out with another whoosh sound, and then returned to Yuan's dantian. Yuan immediately looked inside her dantian and saw that Xiaohuo had fallen asleep. Unexpectedly, there was a divine fire in the box. Yuan felt grateful to the divine man for being willing to give such a rare divine fire to her. In this sacred tower, it is rare to meet such a real person. What Yuan didn't know was that this divine fire was very valuable, but the man of had no need at all, and he couldn't come up with anything more valuable than this divine fire. Moreover, if Yuan hadn't saved him, he wouldn't have survived. A divine fire wouldn't be enough to compare with his life. He simply took the divine fire as a reward. He felt the breath of fire on Yuan's body and thought she could use it. When Yuan came out again, she found the mythical beast that had attacked her before. The divine beast had just swallowed a divine man and was still refining it. When he saw Yuan coming to his cave, he moved out and came out. You are so brave, the mythical beast glared at her, daring to ruin his good deeds. Nonsense, Yuan was too lazy to talk to the beast and punched him. The divine beast has fire, so he immediately fought with Yuan. Half an hour later. Bang, Yuan punched the divine beast into the mountain, smashing his cave to pieces. The divine beast was beaten, and he suddenly recovered his true form, just like a Vajra bear. The body is more than 10 feet long, all black without a trace of color, and the copper bell-like eyes are staring at Yuan. Ho ho! He roared a few times, jumped out of the mountain, and stepped on Yuan. A force like a mountain was pressing down on Yuan, and Yuan suddenly felt as if she was suffocating and about to die. So terrifying, this is his true strength. Yuan did not panic. When the big foot pressed down on her and the light above her head was completely blocked, her consciousness moved and she entered the space. I originally looked for this divine beast to avenge that blow and practice with him, but I didn't expect that this Vajra bear pretended to be a pig and eat a tiger, and also hid its strength. The strength of this kick was almost as strong as a 4th-level divine beast. Yuan cursed MMP in the space, and all the beasts have learned it. But no matter how precise you are, it's useless. The Vajra bear outside stepped on it, causing the ground to shake. He breathed a sigh of relief as he finally killed the little goddess. He swayed and returned to his human form. Then, with his consciousness, he inspected the huge crater created by his step. No one. Ah! Just when he was confused, he suddenly screamed and rolled on the ground holding his head. His screams immediately attracted the nearby monks. In a moment, 3 gods came one after another and watched the Vajra bear writhing in pain on the ground. Yuan's soul thorn was sent out and exploded immediately. It did not kill him immediately. She wanted him to die in pain. She just didn't expect to attract the monks around her. She was thinking about letting those monks cut him into pieces, or take him in to add some divine power to the space. Just when she was lost in thought, several monks outside were already fighting over the Vajra bear. Yuan smacked her tongue, "Forget it." In order to prevent them from killing each other, she took the nearly burping King Kong bear into space and threw it on the black earth. The diamond bear is gone, stop now. One of the 3 people noticed that the diamond bear was missing, and he immediately shouted. As soon as he shouted, the 2 people stopped immediately and looked at the open space in surprise. Go quickly. It was the same person who shouted before, that the person who could act as an aureole next to them must be stronger than the 3 of them. If they don't leave now, they might be waiting for someone to come back and rob them. Sure enough, the 3 of them disappeared without a trace. Yuan raised the corners of her mouth, "Haha, I'm still trying to her trophy. I won't scare you to death." After the body of the diamond bear was completely swallowed by the black earth, dozens of space rings were placed on the ground. Yuan clicked his tongue a few times. He had eaten dozens of people. It was a pity that those dozens of gods had worked so hard to cultivate and gain the advantage of the Vajra bear. She threw a few cleaning skills on it, picked it up when it was clean, and called Little Snake and the others to see what good things were inside. End of this chapter.